Hey everybody! It's time for another video because we have another snow day. It's 25 below zero out. So we're going to pick up where we left off and we're going to print this screen print that we got started with earlier. So what you're going to need to print your image will be a screen with some kind of stencil on it. You'll need a squeegee to apply the ink. You'll need ink, obviously. I'm using acrylic screen printing ink. There is oil-based, there's also fabric ink. Just kind of depends on what your purpose is. And lastly, you will need a spatula or a spoon or something to apply the ink onto your screen. So let's get started. What we are going to do is we're going to make sure we have all our materials ready because ink tends to dry quickly, so we want to make sure we can do everything all at once to ensure that none of the ink dries on the screen and causes problems. Now, it's going to make your life a lot easier if you have some hinges or a setup where you can attach your screen to something so that it doesn't move around, so that you can lift it up on the hinges without it sliding back and forth. However, since I'm doing this at home, I don't really have that kind of setup here, so I just need to be extra careful that when I am printing my image that it's not moving around, because obviously that's going to smear our design. What I need to do is just make sure that my screen is not like laying down on the table as I'm flooding my screen, and then that I'm holding it down really nice and firmly as I print it. That should hopefully alleviate any problems that we will have. So I have my paper ready. I'm just going to pull a couple practice prints because I haven't printed this image yet. So I'm just going to have this ready to go, kind of out of the way. And to get started, I'm just going to grab my ink and I'm just going to scoop a little bit out. I'm not printing a whole bunch, so I don't need a ton of ink. And I'm just going to kind of pour it in a gentle little line across the width of my image. Now remember in the earlier video that I taped off all the areas that I don't want to print. And I've created kind of little gutters with tape in the corners to prevent the ink from seeping out anywhere that I don't want it to be. All right, now to begin, what we need to do is something called flooding the screen. So when we flood the screen, we prepare it by covering it with ink. And that just makes sure that the ink is filling in all of the areas of our matrix or the screen. So I'm going to lift the screen off of my table. I have just this little thing of ink here that I'm setting underneath it just to give it a little bit of height in case my hand slips. And I'm going to take my squeegee and I'm going to use the 45-degree angle here. So just the corner of it. We're not using the top or the flat part. We're using the corner. And I'm going to pull it across my screen gently so that the ink covers the screen. So I'm going to grab some of this ink here and pull it across my image. All right, so this is called flooding our screen. From here, I'm going to set my paper underneath it. If I were doing multiple colors or t-shirts or something, I would set up a registration system, but considering it's just on paper and is really just a proof or a test run, it's not as big of a deal. So I'm going to set this down, make sure everything's clean. I'm going to set down my screen, and then at this point I want to make sure that I don't move it once I set it down. Okay, so now my screen's going to be firmly on the paper. I'm going to drag this across with a little bit of force, dab off some of that excess ink, and then I'm going to push it back and dab the ink off. And that should be good to go. Here we have it. One lovely screen print. So if I wanted to do another one, I'm going to repeat the same process. So we will put our paper down. Before I print, I'm going to flood my screen again. So I'm going to drag this ink across gently. I'm going to lay my screen down and hold it in place. And since most of my ink's back here, I'm just going to push my squeegee and then pull my squeegee I think I'm going to do one more just to get this corner. There we go. Voila. All right. So there you have it. That's a simple way to screen print your images. Now, when you are done printing, it is vital that you wash out your screen. So just use water if you're using an acrylic-based ink. So a little sponge and some water, and then just let it dry. You can reuse it if you want to keep doing that or switch colors. So that's a really great way to make sure everything is in good working order so you can keep using your screens in the future. Hopefully that was helpful for you. Thanks for watching and keep creating.